This one's simple. It's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. Do not lie. There is no lying to yourself or others. This one, honesty with self and honesty with your partner needs to be so important.
You might be overburdened a little bit. And so that stress impacts the capacity that you might have as a partner to show up in the way in which you might want to. Again, the standard dictates the skill set and how you are able to level up to that. Conscious couples, business partners, and individuals, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and relationship expertise to help you consistently cultivate the most magnificent relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges. We'll help you have the courage to be your authentic self, communicate effectively, and constructively resolve conflict.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching, speaking, podcasting, and hosting live events with conscious couples all over the world, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today, we have episode 173, the 5 skills to being a great partner. Who here does not want to be a great partner? Show of hands. All right, so before we jump into this episode, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show. We officially work with 106 podcasters and business owners. I have all of the numbers between Next Level Social Media, Next Level Podcast Solutions, business coaching, group coaching, 106 podcasters and business owners from all over the world. Way to go, team. Seriously. Thank you so much for all that you do. And if anyone out there wants to start their own podcast and or YouTube channel, reach out to myself or Kevin ASAP. Our information will be in the show notes because we will produce all of the things. Sweetheart, today's a little different. We are using lapel microphones. We have a revamp of the Conscious Couples podcast studio, and we have a new intro, outro, and midtro for everybody. So this is the beginning of the next chapter of the Conscious Couples podcast. Sweetheart, before we jump into this episode, what is your intention?
And I will also, before I share the intention, we have been working on many things at the Conscious Couples podcast for a long time. So we are excited to have them finally be able to be available front-facing to all of you, dear listeners, and watchers and viewers. So my intention for this episode is, number one, to assimilate to all the new. Number two, to make sure that anyone that's joining this podcast episode, they can learn what the 5 skills are to be a great partner. Because more often than not, I will hear that people want great relationships, but unfortunately, a lot of couples don't even know where to start. And so this will be a great episode to get started because it does require work to have a great relationship. And a lot of people want to shy away from that work. And honestly, it's really, really critical.
I had someone from my past. It was someone on my team a long, long time ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And when you and I had first met, she said, I want a relationship like that one day. And I was so grateful because that's exactly what I hoped to be. When I was a little kid, I would see relationships and I would see married couples and I would see you guys don't even like each other, never mind love each other. And I was very scared of marriage for small town, small-minded town, and just not good relationships. There's only 2 relationships in my entire life that I was like, yes, that makes marriage look good. Every other one I was, I'm not so sure. Then I met Emilia when I was 30, almost 30. And when I met Emilia, this person said, I want a relationship like that one day. So I'm so grateful to have a relationship that people aspire to and inspires others. But what I also said to that person, because I was coaching her at the time, is to be completely transparent. Because I care, I'm going to tell you that there's no way you could have a relationship like I have right now because you don't have these 5 skills. Now, I didn't say these 5 skills, but what I said is the only way that you can have a relationship like the relationship that I have now is you have to also develop the skills to become the type of person to attract someone like Emilia and vice versa. So relationships, you're only going to succeed to the level of your skill sets. And it's not usually talked about that way. In career, we talk about it that way. In career, it's obvious. Okay, strategic thinking and communication and vulnerability and leadership, all these skills, it's very obvious to go, okay, well, you're not going to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company without any skills.
Right. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Exactly. Well, the same is true for having a great relationship.
Facts.
Emilia did an event called Out of the Mud. You started Out of the Mud, I think, 4 or 5 years ago.
It's been a long time. It's just about 5 years, I would say.
One of the coolest concepts I've ever heard. I remember when you first started it, and I remember thinking, that is such a cool concept. Out of the Mud, I love the title.
Yeah.
Because people that feel stuck, they come to you and Bianca at Evolve Ventures, and they get a free event every month where they get to get unstuck.
Yeah.
And just like at the Relationship Talks virtual events that we host every month, by the way, it's really important stuff that no one taught us in school. And that's what I love most about Next Level University, Evolve Ventures, and the We, is that this is all stuff that unfortunately none of us were taught in school. And I don't know if anyone else cares, but I certainly do. And I wanted to hear it again. So go Evolve Ventures,
Yes.
NLU, and the We.
Yes. Squad.
My point of this, though, is that you did an event on Wednesday night with Bianca, you
Yep.
two, and it was about the 5 skills that you need to develop in order to have a great relationship, in order to be a great partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to interview Emilia about those 5 skills. Also, we have a digital asset that we're going to be putting in the show notes that she's going to be referencing. Okay,
Yeah.
First question. Are you ready?
I think so. I feel so far away from you.
I know.
First, I just need to share that with you.
It's a little... I miss you too.
Can we hold hands?
I would love to.
Okay. Just kidding.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
Sweetheart. So real quick, the Conscious Couples Couch, for those of you who have listened up to date, the non-new listeners, that couples couch is now downstairs. That is the snuggle couch.
It went bye-bye.
It had to go bye-bye because we were sinking into it. It was very hard
Alan
to have a professional.
hated it.
I hated it.
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was like, this is for nunites, not for professional, effective communication.
So you and I couldn't really show this version of ourselves, which the listeners are going to start to see, which is we can dial up and dial down and we have the full spectrum. And I'm excited for that.
It was a good idea. And we didn't know that the couch was going to eat people. So I'm glad that we have these chairs now.
Little snuggle snare.
Okay, so real quick, so I got to get in interview mode.
All right,
So I love you, baby. But,
I love you.
Okay, we got to talk with our hands here.
Let's go.
All right, so you did an event on Wednesday. My first question for you is, what was the most surprising skill that the audience didn't expect?
So when I first started out the event, I had shared that becoming a great partner, it's very subjective. My standard of what it means to be a great partner is very different than when someone's maybe 18 years old, their version of a great partner. And so that, I want to start answering your question with that story, because when I shared that, what I saw in the audience was almost like oh, right. That's totally true. What Emilia's version of great, being a great partner, that's going to look very different with her having 15 plus years of developing skill sets, the skill sets that we're going to talk about tonight, than it is to me. So what I noticed was that the audience was kind of dumbfounded just initially from that. And
they had never thought about this probably before.
Yeah.
Because we think of skills at work. We don't think of skills in an intimate relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So
some of that was probably them being like, I guess I've never actually contemplated this before. And what are my standards and what are the skills that my partner actually does or does not have? So yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't just in the fact that it is skills based, but I started in the fact that based on your standards it will help you level up or rise to the occasion of the five skills that we were going to talk about in that event. And what was critical in that event was talking about how you can want to develop these skills all day, which I'm encouraging of. However, there is a capacity challenge that we often run into day in, day out in relationships. And I said, everyone is stressed out. You know, I asked the audience, like, what's something that's on your plate that's stressing you out right now? Everyone could think of something. And it's like, your plate is likely full. You're likely not like, if you're in this room, if you're at a Evolve Ventures Out of the Mud event, you're likely not like leaving space on your plate. You are the type of person who's kind of busy getting after it, has goals, and you might be overburdened a little bit. And so that stress impacts the capacity that you might have as a partner to show up in the way in which you might want to. Again, the standard dictates the skill set and how you are able to level up to that. And so the number one skill that was really honed into, that the audience was surprised on, we did a poll. I had asked, what do you guys think is the number one skill? And I listed the skill, a lot of skills actually, and the definitions, and a lot of people went to communication, some of the basics.
Trust.
But the number one skill, like I said, exactly, building trust. I said, we can practice all these other skills, but if we don't have emotional regulation as a fundamental baseline, the capacity that you're willing to develop the other skill, it's not based on whether or not I want to. It's how much capacity you have available to develop the other skills.
So number one is emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so AKA taking a deep breath, taking a moment, taking a minute. Hey, I need a minute. Emotional regulation. Okay, because we don't have a ton of time, I want to go through these and we got to hammer them quick. Okay.
Yep.
So give me all 5 and give me your definition and give me an example of each.
Okay. I'm going to do so in the digital asset that all the listeners can download, I'm actually going to pull it up and not go through necessarily a high level definition, but rather what is it in a nutshell? What is the practice and how can you apply it in action? Because the critical focus that I want to have for partners is actually on the practice of skill development, not just like a one and done. Every single day, and I'll reiterate what I said in Out of the Mud, every single day it should be a practice, just like yoga, right? Or just like mobility, or just like any other skill, football. You have to develop a practice every single day. And so it's more about the practice and any messy action towards that than it is about any sort of perfection, arrival, etc. So progress is what you want. So number one, emotional regulation. You had mentioned breath work. That is huge. AKA in action, when you all of a sudden start to notice that heat in your chest or feeling activated, you start to actually name it out loud with your partner. Hey, honey, I feel really activated right now. Can we return back to this conversation once I go and take a couple of deep breaths? Something as small like that is huge. Okay.
Bonnie here. I just wanted to share my experience with group coaching and some of the things that I got out of it. So going into group coaching, I was not tracking any habits at all. And I had sort of jumped on board habit tracking here and there, knowing it was a good idea, but not sort of ever succeeding with it. And so now some of them have become habits. I'm happy to say I wake up, I have a glass of water without even thinking about it anymore. So now I think it's probably time to gear up and increase my water intake or change the water one a little bit, something like that. And so I highly encourage people to jump into group coaching. There's so much information that you will get out of it. I recommend bringing a notebook to all of the sessions and taking lots of notes, asking lots of questions, and rewatching the videos, because it is the video coaching part is just packed with information. I also really recommend that you check in with your accountability buddy and sort of lift each other up throughout the experience, because there's lots of momentum, it's really exciting, and then it gets hard. And so stick with it and carry on, and your life will be better for it. Okay, take care.
And I'm looking down at my phone because this is the digital asset that I want to make sure that I'm sharing in order. Number two is the communication of your needs. So we have talked again and again on this podcast how difficult it is to actually locate and communicate what that need is.
Well, the reason why, and you mentioned locate, you cannot communicate a need that you aren't aware of what it actually is.
Exactly.
And that's why there's so much self-awareness in this, is having a partner. If you want to be a great partner, you have to know your needs and then know what solutions to create, like what meets your needs. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Okay, continue.
So the practice, really what we spoke about in the event and what I'll share here is the practice of nonviolent communication of your needs. And that's critical, because if you communicate your needs in a defensive or blaming type way, which most people have been conditioned and learned to do, then you will activate the other partner and cue, boom, emotional regulation is out the window, or you're challenged in a capacity that you're not available to. So for example, in action, right, what this might look like is the NVC model is I noticed, I feel, I need, can you? I noticed, I feel I need, can you? And so I noticed, babe, that when you first got home, you walked right by me. I feel neglected. I need a hug. Can you, after you're done putting your bag down, can you come give me a hug? Right?
That's a hypothetical, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, no, that never happens.
I never storm right past
No,
you.
not at all. Not at all. Okay. Number 3 is repairing conflict. So in real time, this is, are you and do you have the capacity to have humble reflection and then actually reapproach whatever conflict comes up in your relationship, because it will come. So in action, what this actually looked like is I realized that earlier today, babe, I was actually reacting out of fear. And I'm sorry. And after reflection, I want to reapproach what happened. And I want to take a look at like really why did I react that way and what came up for me? That's humble reflection, being able to go into your conflict again from a place of de-escalation. And that's key, right? Because conflict's going to happen, but how you go about repairing and reconciliating with that conflict helps so much. The 4th is building trust. We all know it can take one day to tear down your relationship, just like anything else.
This one's simple. It's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. Do not lie. There is no lying to yourself or others. This one, honesty with self and honesty with your partner needs to be so important. I'll give a playful story for this one. One time I was swimming. Emilia and I were at the lake. This was early in our relationship. I think the first summer we were at the lake, and I noticed myself embellish when I said something, because I was like, yeah, I did 5 laps. And then in my head, it went, you fucking liar. You only did 4. Why did you just say 5? That was just that old little boy tendency to embellish so that the pretty girl likes me more. That's the dumbest shit ever. Do not do that. And I said, sweetheart, I just lied to you. I'm so sorry. I lied to myself.
Right.
And I embellished, and I shouldn't have embellished. It's actually 4 laps. I don't know why I said 5.
Yeah.
That's trivial. I could have let that ride. You would never know. But I would know. And that's a bad habit.
Yes.
If you don't catch it when it's small, you might end up a slippery slope.
You will.
And I told you, I will never, ever lie to you.
Yeah.
And everyone out there thinking is, well, you did just lie to her. No, I told her right away. But the point is do not lie to yourself or others. That is so foundational to having a great life, never mind just having a great relationship.
Absolutely. So the practice of that is consistency plus action. So consistency plus action in real time, what that actually looks like, saying to yourself, I will not lie to myself. I think of the Harry Potter, like, I will never tell a lie, like him writing in the paper that like goes into his skin. But anyways, I won't say yes to avoid tension. That's the thought pattern that needs to be here. Because if you and I are in some sort of tension and all of a sudden I just say, yeah, I love that food, or yes, I'm okay with that, or yeah, babe, we can do that. That is me lying to myself and not taking a moment to really check in with what's true to me and then give from that space what my truth is to you.
And then I'm going to set up a date night with that food.
Ugh,
what do you mean? You
brutal.
said you love that. No, I was lying to you because I was emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah, which is huge. So that brings us to the last one, which is self-ownership. You and I inherently do this really well in our relationship. And honestly, it's been a game changer, because when I look back at my old relationships, there was no reflection and there's no apologizing. I said it out of the mud. One of my biggest challenges in relationship, not necessarily was the self-ownership, because I would take ownership all the time, but I noticed that my family doesn't really apologize at all, like in my family of origin, and like that was a thing. So I ended up in my past relationship over apologizing to where it wasn't even my fault. So when you and I got together, it was like, where's the line of like actual, like not taking more responsibility, but also not taking less. So that was interesting. So in real time, what you say to your partner is, hey, babe, I realized earlier today I got totally dysregulated. That was my protector. And I got triggered when I heard you say blah, 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 blah. Like, that's huge.
All right. So in past relationships, I had a partner, and I know a lot of people have experienced this. I had a partner in the past that I would be pointing at me and they'd also be pointing at me. And you had your past relationship. I was taking over ownership. For me, I realized this later on. If I don't take ownership, there's nothing I can do about it. So for me, I actually like to take ownership because now I can change it. That turns out, if you have one person who loves taking ownership and loves positive change, and one person who loves to blame, that's a really bad combination. So if you're in that situation, identify it, work on it. But the cool part about being in a relationship with Emilia is that we were both on the over ownership. So I used to be in a relationship where I was pointing at me and then she was also pointing at me. With Emilia, I'm pointing at me and she's pointing at herself.
It's like, no, that was mine.
No, that was me.
Mine.
No, that was mine. My fault.
We're fighting over
And it's,
ownership.
whose fault is it? It's mostly mine. And that is so constructive because what we can do is have a brainstorming session and say, okay, this is my piece of it. I could have done this, and this better. And you do the same thing. And then we both get better as a result. So that's how you have a great relationship. I know we got to jump, love. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. These are the 5 skills. Again, the digital asset will be in the show notes. Download that, review it, take a look at it. What's the big one that your partner definitely doesn't have? What's the big one that you definitely don't have that you need to develop? This is the hard thing about relationships. I remember being in high school and I remember not knowing what the hell I was doing. I didn't have any of these skills. It's not going to go well. Right? Yeah. Everyone ruins their relationships because they aren't developing the necessary skills to actually flourish. And that's the point of the Conscious Couples podcast. I cannot say that enough. And if we were taught this in school, things would be, not one of those was taught in school.
But here we are, you're listening, you're tuning in, and now it's about taking this into action. So go out there, take messy action, have a practice, and again, recognize that progress is the most important thing over this.
And pick one for you and one for your partner. Start there, and then you can work your way down the list. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. Okay, we have Relationship Talks coaching. If you want to work through these, your reference group is responsible for 94%, according to Harvard Business School, 94% of your success in life. I think that's true for relationships too. You might know the stat better than me, but if you have a friend couple that you're friends with that gets divorced, you increase your chance.
It's by 75%.
It's crazy percentage. So again, I don't know if that's the exact percentage, but your reference group, the people you spend time with, the people you allow into your ears, the people that you listen to, the people you're comparing to, they drastically dictate whether or not you're healthy, wealthy, and in love.
Whether or not you have a good relationship, a great relationship, or an extraordinary relationship. 100%. So Alan and I, as your reference group in this episode, we aspire to have an extraordinary relationship.
I believe everyone wants to be healthy, wealthy, and in love. Healthy, wealthy, and in love. And if you want to be healthy, wealthy, and in love, Relationship Talks coaching is a great option. The first one is free. 30 minutes, totally free with Emilia and myself, you and your partner. Let's rock and roll. We recently did one, and the guy in the relationship playfully said, "How are Barbie and Ken going to help us in our relationship?" He was being playful. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
So it's free.
It's free. And in addition to free value, that helps us cultivate these skill sets to have a better relationship talks or relationship in general is Relationship Talks event, which Alan and I, we had mentioned earlier, we have one every single month that is absolutely free. You don't have to turn on your mic or camera. You can just listen in. It's going to be June 19th. How to determine your relationship's commitment level. Man, the more committed you are to your relationship, it will show up. And so this event will be all about helping to determine where you are both at so that you're not second guessing if you have more quote unquote skin in the game in this relationship than your partner. Because if you do, that might be okay for you, but at least having an understanding and not just it being in your head will help you actually create data-driven decisions in your relationship that help you move forward.
Yeah, the more you're committed you are, the more you invest. The more you invest, the better it gets. And then the more commitment you have. So it's very important to identify that. Okay, sweetheart. As always, thank you so much. Conscious couples and singles, we appreciate you. And as always, it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please check the show notes to connect with us and say hello on social media.
If you and your partner resonated with this episode, please leave us a 5-star review at the link in the show notes and share this with someone you love. Until next time, it's not about you or me, it's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.